agent who has repped some of the biggest names in the world, including Muhammad Ali, Magic Johnson, Dennis Rodman, and a ton of others. But with the glitz and glamour also came a 23-year drug addiction. Here to share his story and talk about his new book, Aiming High, welcome Darren Prince.
Hi, Darren.
Let's talk about the positives first. And how did you go to rep some of the biggest names in the world? How did this happen?
I was in the sports memorabilia business in the baseball card industry as a teenager. And at these trade shows, some of these athletes would be signing autographs. I developed a relationship with Muhammad Ali's agent and then eventually Magic Johnson. And I was booking autograph signings for several years. I eventually sold that company and started Prince Marketing Group, and Magic became my first client.
Magic Johnson became your first client.
1995, I was 25 years old.
Wow. What's a conversation like with that, trying to get him to let you represent him?
You know, he developed a relationship with me and my family for a few years, so he really trusted me. And he said these words I'll never forget, that if I don't use him to knock down every door to bring in all the celebrities I can, that he was going to fire me before the 2 years were up, because it's not how successful he became, it's how successful I became and everybody else around him, that it was a domino effect. And to fast forward with that mentality, he's got $1 billion empire.
Yeah,
Right.
he does.
So you started repping all of these major stars and celebs, and then when did the drug addiction happen?
The addiction started at 12. I was in sleepaway camp. I had horrible stomach pains one night, and the counselor took me to the infirmary. I took this green liquid in a clear cough syrup cup, thinking nothing of it. It tasted terrible. As I was walking across the softball field back to the bunk, I felt like Superman. All the insecurities, the inadequacies, the feelings of less than, growing up being told I had a learning disability went away like that. And every night for 3 weeks, I did the same thing. I would go back and complain of her stomach pains until my mom and dad found out I was taking liquid Demerol.
Wow. And so you were addicted to drugs for 23 years. It started at 12. That meant that you were still being an agent and having this addiction at the same time?
I was highly functioning for the first 8 or 9 years of my career as an agent, but eventually what was once living to use turned out to using to live.
Wow.
And I didn't want to live. I was to that point where I was suicidal. I didn't know how to get out. I was in such a dark, dark place, and I was always looking for an outside fix that was ultimately an inside job.
Yeah, and you've been sober for 10 years now. What exactly was that turning point when you woke up and was like, this is it?
This is my favorite. So July 2nd, 2008, I had 2 days clean. My uncle was in the 12-step fellowship and his then girlfriend, and I couldn't do it. I was shaking, trembling. I got up to my apartment at the time in the city, and I told them I'm going to call the doctor. I need to get what I really need to get, and went into the medicine cabinet. I pulled out what I thought were anxiety pills, and it was more opiates. I didn't realize that I had some left in the medicine cabinet. And for a split second, it felt like a gift from God. That was the relief I needed. But then on this side of my head, I'll never forget the warmth and the voice tell me that I've got you and you're ready. And I fell on my knees, trembling, shaking, and crying. And I said, God, take the money, the notoriety, the business, I don't care. I need a single day of freedom. I'm begging you for help. And I stood up, I flushed the opiates. 30 minutes later, I was in a cab on the way to a 12-step meeting, looking up at the sky saying, oh my God, for the first time in my life, I wanted to stay sober more than I wanted to get high. And that was July 2nd, 2008, and I haven't picked up a drug since.
Wow, good for you.
Yeah.
And you wrote a book about it, and you share your story. What do you want people to get out of the book?
You know, that drugs and alcohol doesn't discriminate. It doesn't matter if you're from Park Avenue or Park Bench or from Yale or jail, that we've all got these issues. And for me, I love speaking to the teens more than any group, because so many issues are going on right there. And I only wish that I knew I had somebody like me to tell my young self to speak up. Tell a counselor, tell a teacher, tell a friend that you feel different and you need help. And you know, don't mask it with drugs. Don't become that person that has to put a substance in your system just to fit into the world.
Right, you were actually invited to the White House to talk about the opioid epidemic at a summit.
I was there twice. I was there for the signing in October this year and back in March. And it's a privilege. I had a relationship with the former president when he was Donald Trump, when Dennis Rodman was on Celebrity Apprentice. So
yeah, there's a picture of that in your book.
Yeah. You actually give out your phone number. You give out your real phone number and tell people to call you. Anybody can call you, and I know you do a lot of work for treatment centers.
Yes, Banyan Treatment Centers is 11 properties in 4 different states, and it's 888-6-DARREN, D-A-R-R-E-N. And if people need to be scholarship for help, we find a way to get them in there, because it's the most important thing in my life. Nothing comes before. The agent life is fun and it's great. It's what I do. Who I am is a recovering opiate addict, one day at a time, trying to help give this gift away to other people that need it.
Yeah.
That's your passion.
Your
That's
phone
what drives
ringing
you.
yet?
What's that?
You must be taking thousands of phone calls. How do you even manage that time?
That they help me with the call center, but it's just been such a beautiful experience. You know, here I thought that it was always about Darren the agent, and that was not my calling. This was the calling.
What was the story that touched you the most out of all the calls you've gotten?
I spoke at a high school, about 2,000 kids in October, and after I was done, we opened it up to a Q&A, and this kind of big awkward kid put his hand up and looked down and said, "Mr. Prince, you said a couple words that I want to tell on myself. You know, I've been smoking weed, I've been taking pills out of my mom's cabinet, I've been drinking." 16 years old. He goes, "I'm angry, I'm miserable, I don't like the person I'm becoming. But you said some words that I don't want to keep being this person anymore." And it took me a second to take a deep breath, because it's hard not to engage in emotions at that time. And I said, "Young man, I have 2 words for you. I wish I had the courage that you did right now."
Right.
Because you just inspired so many people in this auditorium. I had 8 kids after that come over to me when it was done, and every single one of them either went to a guidance counselor or a teacher for help. That's what it's about. One person every time I speak. If I can get to one, it's directly impacting.
Yeah.
Great work what you're doing, and
Wow.
you truly are a success story.